Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Phumelele Zondo with your technology and social media news. We hope you still are staying at home and adhering to those level 1 lockdown regulations if you must leave home. It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Use network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, Twitter poll is asking you about Osana Makate, who's still in court battles with Vodacom over the Please Call Me service that he created. We are asking you if you think that he should continue fighting or if he should accept the millions that is being offered by Vodacom. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up tonight. We look at what could lead to WhatsApp being hacked, as we often hear that it's encrypted. Communications Minister Ndabeni-Abrahams reported to have been hacked on WhatsApp recently. We look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrency's popularity around the African continent. And in our conversation, we discuss the technology that's being used at airports as travel opens up again. This is to trace COVID-19. We often hear that WhatsApp is encrypted, and we've been told this time and again, but every once in a while we hear of somebody who's been hacked. It once happened with staff members here at the SABC. We recently heard that Minister of Communications, Ndabeni-Abrahams, was hacked. So what could happen in these cases?
Throughout the week, many South Africans were shocked that Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Ndabeni-Abrahams, was hacked on chat mobile phone application WhatsApp. WhatsApp is encrypted, many thought. The minister herself also said she felt the same thing and was equally surprised to realize that third parties have access to her private messages. At a press briefing on Tuesday, the minister chuckled as she answered journalists on rumors about her nudes and other private information being leaked for strangers to see.
On the issue of the WhatsApp hack, I'm sure all of you have been waiting. I hear even on the WhatsApp groups, others were saying, hey, we hear the news, hey, we hear this and that. I know you may be disappointed. As the people in this platform, surely you would have seen if there was anything untoward. But of course, you will find naughty messages between myself and my husband in those WhatsApps.
On Twitter, some said they find the hacking allegations hard to believe. Take Solomon_Grandi, for example, who tweeted, WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption. So how exactly was the minister hacked? Another tweet from @watchdog_ZA read that the only way to have access to WhatsApp messages is to have access to the backup. Despite tweets questioning her claims, the minister says social media platforms should tighten their security features.
WhatsApp has this message that we sign up for, that messages are encrypted from end to end, and therefore if hacks happen, then we still have to engage with the platform owners to say where may be the gaps. Although we have a full appreciation that to hackers this is a game. They will hack anything because it's about the game they play in terms of the software development and everything that they do. So to beat the other net, it makes sense for them, and therefore that's why we always say the platform owners must always make sure that they look into the security features.
These WhatsApp hacks seem to be happening more frequently. Here at the SABC, some of our colleagues faced a WhatsApp security breach at the beginning of the year.
Because when I was hacked, I was at work, so one of my colleagues received a message, and the message was asking for, the person was pretending to be me, asking my colleagues for 1,500, because they said that, the message read that, hi, I lost my bank card, can you please e-wallet me 1,500, I'll pay you back tomorrow.
According to security experts, this kind of WhatsApp hack is achieved through social engineering by taking over people's numbers and gaining access to their private messages.
The vast majority of cases, it's not actually the network's fault. It's very rare that we find a vulnerability in an actual messaging platform like WhatsApp or something similar. Most of the time, it's either some kind of targeted attack. So in the case of WhatsApp, for example, there's an attack whereby you persuade a friend of your victim to send you the passcode for an account. That type of attack. So social engineering of some form. Or you attack the device. So if somebody's using WhatsApp Web, for example, to use WhatsApp on their PC, attacking a PC is pretty easy. There are lots of ways you can do that. That's probably the easiest route that you'd use if you wanted to get access to people's WhatsApp communications and messages and contacts and so on.
Talit adds there are different methods to guard against this.
User error is a thing, and the networks do what they can to, so if there's a new login from a device that it recognized, they'll generally send you a message to say, we've seen you log in, is this you, that type of thing. They do provide things like two-factor verification on accounts. It's not turned on by default, so you have to actually go and turn it on, and they don't do a great job of telling people that it's there. But there are mechanisms that you can turn on within WhatsApp or within other platforms to make yourself more secure.
The Department of Communications and Digital Technologies says the issue of the minister's hacking is still under investigation.
We hope that it does get resolved and that there are explanations on what happened with the Minister of Communications as well. All right, so Chinese companies are facing problems in North America and in Europe. But when it comes to Chinese mobile phone companies, they've been popular in Africa for a while. We've heard the names Tecno, Xiaomi, and Huawei gaining popularity all across Africa. But will the problems that they have in the rest of the world affect how they do here in Africa as well? In the second quarter of this year, Huawei became the world's largest smartphone maker. COVID-19 was largely attributed to this. These sales were predominantly in China, but because of Huawei's problems in North America, it's believed that Samsung will be number one again.
In terms of the African footprint, I believe the Q4 2019 stats from IDC showed that Huawei and Samsung, they were in the top three, with Samsung second and Huawei third. They were behind Transsion Holdings, which is the parent company of brands like Tecno and Infinix.
Huawei can no longer use American products in its devices, and therefore they lose the current chip and will not have Android support from Google. They have other issues too.
Google Play Services itself, which is like a framework of, software, it's used by a lot of other companies. So, for example, WhatsApp uses Google Drive, Google's cloud backup services. So when you get a new phone and you want to restore your previous chats and that sort of thing, that's where WhatsApp is using Google's services. Uber, for example, harnesses Google's location and mapping functionality. So those kind of apps will have significant challenges running on Huawei devices without Google services.
Problems faced by Huawei in America are faced by a number of Chinese companies. But South African smartphone users we spoke to seem to still love their devices despite this.
Huawei sengisebenzise 4 years now. Ngisebenzisa Huawei une camera right futhi une space yabo compared to la amanye amafoni ngingawasebenzisa.
Huawei ngiyithanda kakhulu ngenxa ye quality yakhona. If ngicompetition nefoni ebengiyiphatha before Huawei into ngalendlela ukuthi i-camera yakhona i-right.
Ngisebenzisa Huawei because inama features are right, ishutha kahle ithombe.
As Android is American-owned, Huawei is now going its own way by developing the Harmony operating system.
Smartphones powered by Harmony OS. There will be challenges along the way. One of the big challenges is making sure that Android apps, or most Android apps, run on this operating system. We saw BlackBerry try it in the past, where they launched BlackBerry 10, which was its own operating system, and that operating system had, the ability to run Android apps. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But BlackBerry 10 didn't succeed. Of course, Huawei is in a different stage of its life. I think BlackBerry 10 came kind of a bit too little too late almost. Huawei is in a position where it is still very strong, so it could potentially push Harmony OS to do better than BlackBerry 10.
As people struggle with a change, this will lose them support, according to predictions. But some believe that as a number of Chinese companies are facing similar problems in America, maybe Chinese smartphone makers should club together on Harmony OS and compete with Android.
Chinese smartphone brands already have quite strong dominance across the African continent, but they've done so using Android. What we can expect is that many of these brands are now going to develop their own operating system. So because Android has been built on the back of independent brands, the reality is that many Chinese brands can take their existing consumer base along with them, even if they move away from Android as an operating system.
According to the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, that's ICASA, the country has a smartphone penetration rate of more than 90%. This high penetration rate of smartphones is even bringing other Chinese players to the country. Tecno announced earlier this year that they will now be in South Africa. Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo are also Chinese, and they have presence here too now.
The Chinese manufacturers tend to be leaders in terms of price of bringing these devices into the African continent. As we find more pressure on these brands, you're going to find that the ability of consumers across the African continent to have access to Android devices at a relatively cost-effective price point is going to diminish as there's further pressure on Chinese brands.
New global research by Digitimes sees Huawei falling from number 1 to number 7 in the shipment of smartphones in the next year. The prediction has South Korean Samsung at number 1 with American Apple back at number 2. But the rest of the top 5 has Chinese brands, with Oppo at number 3, followed by Vivo, and Xiaomi closes the top 5. So globally, at least according to these predictions, it doesn't seem to be too gloomy for Chinese smartphone brands, even though Huawei will take a huge knock. All right, and we are often told by Huawei that what's happening in the rest of the world should not affect how people view their devices. We don't know what the future is going to be like over there. It's still all speculation, really, at the moment. And cryptocurrency is gaining popularity across Africa, and often this happens in countries that don't have stable economies. Here's why.
4 months ago, Abulanji made a big shift in his business, selling mobile phones from a cramped shop in a frenetic Lagos street market. He started paying his suppliers in Bitcoin. He buys and sells around 15 phones a month from his shop, sourcing headsets and accessories from China. His Chinese suppliers said they would prefer to be paid in Bitcoin. The move has boosted his profits.
We trade with Bitcoin, which is a very easy way of doing business. Because with Bitcoin, you don't have to pay charges. You don't have to buy dollars. You don't have to convert your naira to dollar before you buy. Because you are buying directly, when you buy in Bitcoin, you are buying directly in dollar and you send through dollar.
Transfers by individuals and small businesses, those under $10,000 jumped by 40% from July 2019. Cryptocurrencies are helping people make their businesses quicker, smoother and more profitable, users said.
It is a major investment because Bitcoin keeps getting higher every year. And so people are seeing it as an investment opportunity, making the switch. And then also there is the ease that sending money or doing transactions in general with Bitcoin brings.
Bitcoin's legal status is unclear in many countries, and converting local currencies to and from Bitcoin still relies for many on informal brokers.
Bitcoin trading and cryptocurrency trading in general is still a relatively minor pursuit in Nigeria, though of course it is growing fast. And this is a worry potentially for individuals at least, if not for the wider economy, that they could end up with losses because Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies do fluctuate in value enormously over time.
Timmy Ajiboyi, who runs Buy Coins, a cryptocurrency exchange in Lagos, said volumes jumped more than threefold to $21 million in June this year.
Bitcoin, everybody can tap into the world of finance with just your phone, your mobile phone, and an internet connection. So looking at everybody on internet right now, we have more than about 3 billion people online. So it means that if everybody is well informed, 3 billion people can tap into the world of commerce without BVN.
Exchanges operating across Africa are seeing a boom, with falling local currencies among reasons cited for the growth.
It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram News Network at sabc.co.za and email. After the break, we have a conversation about technology being used at airports as people are traveling again. It is the SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, machines will become the norm at airports as we try to limit the spread of COVID-19, but these will stay even beyond COVID-19. For now, the thought of travel is daunting for many. The tourism industry is struggling all over the world. When one chooses to fly, it's still the basic temperature check, fumigation, and off we go. That's here in Africa. Fancier tech is coming. In other parts of the world, like in Singapore, fumigation and cleaning are done by robots at train stations. You can bet that this will be moving to airports too.
The hydrogen peroxide solution inside the robot, we use the nozzle to spray the hydrogen peroxide in a mist form, and if that concentration maintained in the environment for 15 minutes, through the test that we have performed, we can guarantee that the environment, will, all the germs in that, including the coronavirus, will be totally killed.
When flights resumed in Paris, thermal cameras would check the temperature of passengers, so there'd be no human contact for this. Ultraviolet decontamination tunnels were also being tested. It's believed that the light released would kill any viruses on luggage. These are just some of the examples of how tech will be changing travel in future. To further this discussion with me is Nate Carpenter. He is Securiport's Chief Software Architect. Now, hello and thank you very much for being a part of our network, Nate. Maybe if you can start by telling us about the training that goes with this introduction of technology, especially for airport staff.
They're the front line, the first line of defense on the border for all of our countries, and they have these challenges ahead of them. So now that we're adding another thing, health screening, it's now a top priority for all countries, and it's a new requirement for the border staff in most countries. Some countries have dealt with pandemics and outbreaks before and have some experience in this. But what do they need to start? Well, the one thing that border staff really have going for them is they have a lot of experience. They've been through this decade of change, and they know they're used to having to consume this new information and apply it in their day-to-day routines. But they need the official guidance to start as well. We need the country and the ministry that's in charge to help them and to give them clear guidance on what to do, what policies are in place, and what processes to use. Now, that gets them started. From that point on, they always have to keep in mind safety for themselves and for the travelers. And what does that mean? They need to be equipped with the proper PPE, how to use it, and they need to be very aware of the interactions with travelers and how that plays into their day-to-day routines.
Now, Nate, what's happening at airports currently might result in a slowdown of movement of passengers as everyone is trying to figure out how the testing works and the new technologies are being introduced. Will that not create delays, unnecessary ones too?
But in terms of technology, one thing that a lot of airlines are offering now is online check-in. And you can certainly do that before you come to the airport. That will reduce people that are gathered around the ticketing counters, for example, and can help you arrive at the airport and get through a lot faster.
Currently, a lot of airports are requiring that one produces a COVID-19 certificate, but one method will be used to validate the data and its authenticity.
There's really two things that we think at Securiport need to be done, and the best if they're done together. The first is to use high reliability, touch-free, multimodal biometrics. It's a lot of technical words, but what I'm really saying is don't just rely on a single biometric. And we have two very good touch-free options right now as an industry. There's iris scanning, which is very accurate, and face recognition as well, which has gotten dramatically more accurate in the past decade. So if you use these together, it's much easier to positively identify a traveler. And you can use this to process and verify most travelers if their data is in the system. You can still take fingerprints. Fingerprints, are required by a lot of policy, and they're also very effective because there are large databases of criminals and other actors, bad actors that are fingerprint based. But when you take fingerprints, of course, you're touching a device. Although there's some research and some new technology out there to allow over-the-air fingerprint capture, which looks like it can be very promising as well. So touch-free biometrics is number one. Number two is to start using automated border controls, such as electronic gates or self-service kiosks, because those will reduce the queues in the crowds. People can work on their own kiosks or go through the electronic gate. They are gathering their own biometric information, having their irises scanned, picture taken, scanning their passport. All these things can be done without an officer touching any of the gear. Now, of course, you have to have sanitization processes in place. You have to clean the kiosk, you have to clean the electronic gate between uses, just to make sure that those surfaces are safe.
Now, Nate, are there any technology-based solution that can help airports?
I think the future is going to be self-service using a mobile device. So for people that have a properly equipped smartphone, they're quite capable of taking high-resolution pictures of your face, potentially your iris and your fingerprints as well. They can scan your passport. You can pre-fill a lot of information, such as your passport, your companions, your ticketing information. You can answer health screening questions. You can do all this on a device that you own, that only you have touched, that you clean, and that you trust. So this is something I think that we're going to see in the industry going forward, and not just for COVID. This is something people have been working on for a number of years. The pandemic has just speeded up the requirement to try to get this in play. Now, a country will have to establish some sort of trusted travel program for this to work, because we need to have highly reliable biometrics to compare what's captured on the smart device for.
All right, Nate Carpenter, a Chief Software Architect at Secureport. Thank you very much for being a part of our network. And with that, let's take a short break. It is the SABC network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
A fully autonomous and emission-free street sweeper has been launched in Finland. The robot has been piloted at a parking lot. Series manufacturing will begin towards the end of 2021, and market-ready models are expected to hit the streets in early 2022. Playing with dolls helps children develop empathy. With neuroimaging technology, the team was able to scan brain activity when children play with dolls versus creating play on a tablet, both by themselves and with playmates.
So what we found is that a particular area of the brain that's known to be important for kind of understanding other people and empathy, so understanding other people's emotions, was active when children were playing with dolls. And it was active both when children played with dolls with another person, a kind of playmate, and when they played with dolls on their own.
But when the children played on a tablet by themselves, the same social processing brain area wasn't active. The experiment involved 44 children between the ages of 4 to 8. How would you feel about letting a robot millipede loose in your intestines? That is one of the proposed application of a new kind of robot that mimics both the way a millipede walks and the way the human body uses tiny hairs. The robot is a carpet of artificial cilia that can be controlled by magnets to produce the kind of waves that allow a millipede to walk.
This self-robot can actually generate a wave between the legs and actually propel to move forward using the same mechanism of millipede walking.
The team is testing the soft plastic carpet's ability to propel itself and to move particles or liquids as cilia do in the body.
This robotic technology can be helpful for us to design next generation robot that can actually move inside the human body, especially inside the intestine.
The ability to magnetically control the movement of a robot inside the body could eventually allow complex medical procedures.
So over the years, we've heard that Nkosana Makate founded the Please Call Me service when he was with Vodacom. It was decided that Vodacom was to pay him for this service. They want to pay him 47 million rand. He says it's not enough, and therefore court battles will continue until he is satisfied with the amount that he feels is due to him. So we're asking you on our Twitter poll this week if you think Nkosana Makate should be satisfied with this money. Now, 48% of you say yes, he should be satisfied, and that you would take the money if it was you. 44% of you say no, he should not be satisfied, and you'd also want more as well. We have a further 8%. It's a small number of you. Those people say, well, they think it is too much. All right, and that's it. That's all we have for you. You can find us on SABC Network, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za. From me, Asiphumelele Zondi, and the rest of the network team, stay home and stay safe. Good night. Have a good one.